Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is Monday, June 3rd, 2024, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And as it stands right now, you've got three of us. You've got Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. We'll see if anybody else pops in the door on this Monday morning, 1st of June. The first Monday of June is what I'm trying to say. And today we are going to be talking, I guess what could be considered as a bit of a preview to next Monday when we're talking about Siri, what Apple has coming up. But really today's show is about Siri and Alexa. And if you didn't get a chance to see my thumbnail for this one, I'm personally proud of it. It's basically, go have a look at it. It's just a cartoon, but it's two elderly women, one with a walker and one with a microphone, and one is Siri and one is Alexa. And Alexa saying to Siri, "What did you just say about my alarm?" And Alexa saying, "Go home, Siri, you're drunk." Or the other way around, "Go home, Alexa, you're drunk." So anyway, made me laugh when I put that together. Wanted to bring that out there. And it's the idea, right? Like, can Siri and Alexa refine the fountain of youth? Can they find the AI fountain of youth and reemerge new, invigorated, like they did? I mean, Siri is 2011. I think Alexa was 2014. And so it's really sort of a conversation about that. But before we get into that, the three of us dig into Siri and Alexa, which I'm sure will be a fun conversation, talking about the developer conference coming up for Apple next week, in which we expect to hear lots of, updates on Siri. I do want to take a quick pause here and just say, number one, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been supporting us on the show. I want to say it's at the top of the show because I typically do it at the end and people are sort of signing off, and that's totally expected. But we are, as it stands right now, I will give you the live update. We are 28 people away from 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And while YouTube is not the only place that we're trying to grow, we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn Live, things like that. YouTube has been the one that has shown like probably the most explosive growth for us. And so a lot of credit of that goes to Jumi, who puts out a lot of our shorts and different things that we're doing there. And we're thinking of always new ways to do it. So I just want to say, number one, thank you to our subscribers. But what I also know is just by looking at the analytics is that a good 80% of people who do catch these shows aren't in fact subscribers. Only 20% of them are. So if you'd like to help us out, a like, a subscribe. If you're like me, which seems to be the growing trend, I watch YouTube on my TV. I have been doing that now for several years. And it seems that YouTube is definitely moving in that direction. So it's a little hard, I'll tell you, on the TV to do a like or subscribe because you got to click around on the screen. It's not like on a computer or your phone. But if you want to support us in that way, that would be great. The other quick thing, and then we'll get back to the show today, is if you would go to the dailyaishow.com, which is our homepage, and sign up for the newsletter. Now, what newsletter, you say? Well, that's a good call because it's the first one's going to come out this Sunday. And we've been working hard on it in the background. We think we have something really different, a different way to look at it. We don't want to just give you the news. There's plenty of other newsletters. We read them too, the Neuron and other ones that are great. But we want to give you something that's a little more than what we can do on the live show here. So pretty simple. Go to the website, dailyaishow.com, and you'll see a place there to submit a form. We're going to give, and the number's growing, so you got to do this soon if you're listening to this. We're going to make sure we give an additional bonus to the first 100 people that sign up for the newsletter. It's just a quick thank you for supporting us early. So if you haven't signed up for that, I'm watching the numbers literally grow on my other screen. So go check that out and sign up for that newsletter. Okay, back to the show, but I just want to say thank you and call out a few quick things there. All right, so Beth, Andy, we have Siri and Alexa, and they're both sort of taking their own paths. I think we could agree at this point that there's definitely more hype around Siri. And that's because next week, June 10th, Apple is having their developer conference, and there's been a lot of rumors. Now, I don't know if any of this has been confirmed. I know that Bloomberg has been heavy in this rumor mill, I guess we'll call it, maybe somewhat back-end confirmed rumor mill about what the future of Siri will be. On the Amazon side, we had a developer conference that was like back in September, and they actually did demo a bit of what the Amazon is saying this sort of new Alexa chat would be like. And we can show a little bit of that. I have it queued up on my screen as well. A little less on that side, but what we have heard within the last 2 weeks on the Alexa side is Amazon is going to come out with a paid version of Alexa. How much? We don't know. I've heard rumblings that it'll be in the single digit figure, so $9 or below per month. And then there's a big question of, hey, that's something we've got all access to for free for 10 years now. And is it a bridge too far? Would people be willing to pay a little extra for it? So that's sort of where we sit on the side, but let's kind of maybe start with Siri, since like that's where the more latest news are. What have you guys heard, or what are you most excited about in the rumor mill, whether it be Bloomberg or anybody else, about what this future of Siri is going to look like?
So I have to say that in researching for this show, I was surprised in finding out what Siri can already do, right? There are a lot of third-party integrations that already exist, and they exist as shortcuts with Siri keywords, right? So I think actually the biggest thing that will shift is not needing to remember the keyword, is potentially being able to just say what you want, right? Like, and that it doesn't have to be called, like talk with ChatGPT, right? Or start a voice conversation with ChatGPT, or whatever those two call key launch words are. So I think the natural language will be really interesting. The other thing that I saw in this, I'm not sure that they will regain their thrones. To like reference back to the title of the show, I think what they're planning is still behind the major players in this, but I'm looking forward to it 100%. That's pretty much where I was coming from. Like what I want is Siri, right? We talk about you being able to have your phone looking over your shoulder at your computer screen. I want a smart Siri looking at me from the phone screen so that I can say, I like this tweet, add it to my mem, and not, right? Like, I'm looking at this side of it. You're looking from the phone at the back
of the screen.
We both know what we're looking at. And so please, or have a conversation about that kind of stuff.
I would love that for any app where I'm like, hey Siri, how do I use this app? Where the hell is the home screen? Where do I go to do this thing? How do I cancel this? And Siri says, I got you. You signed up for this 2 months ago. You've only used it 3 times. You need to go into your general settings. I will take you there. Then Siri says something to the effect of, would you like me to take you there? And I say, yes, that would be great. And it says, okay. And then it opens up my settings, it opens up general, that opens up my subscriptions, and it says, and then there's a big arrow pointing and being like, this is the one. This is the one you want to cancel. And I honestly, as much as a joke, I think that's all totally possible. Like you said, Beth, it's like Siri's looking from the other side of the screen. We can both see it. I just need a little bit help navigating. And maybe there's some agent type work there where I've heard that maybe Siri will be able to do several steps in a row. So if you were to say to your memory thing, add this to my memory and then put it in a document for me, that's 2 steps. Mm-hmm. So we might consider that to be a little bit more like agent-like, because there's now maybe like I'm starting in this app and I'm going to that app. So yeah, there's a lot of potential there. Jimmy's also joined us as well. Jimmy, we were just saying that, we sort of started with Siri, we sort of gave the intro, but we're saying like out of the rumor mill of what's to come maybe next Monday, what are you, we're just talking about like what of the rumors, what Bloomberg has said, what are you like maybe most excited about or you think is going to happen? But I'll throw it to you, Andy, first. So Jimmy, you just joined us. Like Andy, in terms of what you've heard, and do you use an Apple or do you use an Android right now? Apple. Okay. Yep. So with that in mind, what would you say you're maybe most excited about, or maybe like Beth was saying, like, what are you hoping that Siri would be able to do in the near future?
Yeah. So Beth mentioned that Siri already has a number of integrations where you can set up a shortcut to have it invoke some other app or whatever. But that setting up a shortcut on the iPhone, I find to be a clunky experience. It'll be much better if I could simply ask Siri to set up such a keyword, a kind of command. And by the way, we're talking about Siri and Alexa. I want to lay out like the short history of how those things have emerged and focused on certain actions. But Google Assistant is out there too. And Google Assistant is reputed for its better accuracy, its wider range of actions and multi-step interactions that you can program into it. So anyway, I am an iPhone user, so I don't use Google Assistant, but my research on this says that Google Assistant ought to be in this comparo because they're better in a number of significant ways. But let's go back to how Alexa and Siri first started out. These were early AI that was really focused on natural language processing. And so the magic and the kingdom that Siri may have had at one point on the throne was its ability to interpret what was being said to it with various accents and all kinds of drunken slurs and whatever. So it had the ability to figure out what you were saying, except for me. So one of the big obstacles to use of Siri for me has always been that it doesn't quite get what I'm saying. And I get frustrated in interaction with it because it's not comprehending that. And it's similar, the on the iPhone natural language detection and sort of dictation as you're, entering something in it, it routinely doesn't do what I wanted to do if I'm, dictating a text, for example. So Siri, because it's in the iPhone ecosystem, is really focused on trying to work with your other devices and being omnipresent across your Mac desktop and on your phone. And it doesn't remember things across those at all, but it's there. Now, Alexa, I want to shift over a little bit to Alexa. Alexa, as you might surmise, is really, really good at shopping on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where its training and its skill have really come to the fore. Whereas Siri isn't all that effective in the shopping context unless it is for somebody who can actually speak to it. My wife, for example, can dictate long texts or whatever she wants just by calling on Siri. The best I use Siri for is call and the name that I know is in my contact book. And that's as far as I've used Siri. So I'm very optimistic and very eager to see the emergence of Siri capabilities that are expanding on the action front so I can articulate more things to have it do for me and accomplishing with the assistance of OpenAI the natural fluency that you heard in the demos with 4.0.
Yeah.
So if it gets to that point, it's really going to get me for the first time because right now Siri doesn't get me.
And I think if Erin's not here today, by the way, our panel has grown. We now have Carl here too. So there's now 5 of us here, which is great. But if Erin was here, he'd probably be saying, there's a bit of limited interaction because, he doesn't have an accent, but to us, he has an Australian accent. Excuse me. And he may say like, Siri has a hard time. And he's talked about it quite a bit with different of these AI tools where they understand English, but the minute there is a slightly different than a maybe Americanized accent or whatever, there's a little bit of trouble on how they work. So I'd be curious to hear what he has to say about that. But since we do have Jimmy and Carl here as well, Carl, we were just talking about Siri sort of first, but we're talking about Siri and Alexa. Can they regain their throne? Are they washed up? What's going to go on? I think there's a good distinction here to talk about as far as like Siri is maybe, we don't know, partnering with Apple and Google in some ways, in which case Apple may be saying, you know what, we're not trying to necessarily build this in-house, as opposed to Alexa and Amazon, they are. And so they are building their own language model, and we do not have any knowledge right now or even any hints that Amazon is trying to go outside of their ecosystem to perhaps make Alexa better. But Jimmy, the kind of question here is, okay, Siri might get better starting next Monday, or at least we might get some announcements about that. Maybe it is going to be directly connected to GPT-4. Maybe Sam Altman is going to walk out on the stage, as Carl, I know you sort of predicted, not to jump on what you were going to say, Carl, but you sort of predicted that as well. So, what's the best case scenario for you, Jimmy, in terms of what could be announced for Siri next week?
Best case scenario. Well, I think the best case scenario would be I don't have to do anything. It just works. Maybe I hit a button or tap an Apple Watch or tap an AirBud, and I can just talk to it fluently. I'd be like, hey, Siri, I'm thinking about this thing. How can you make that happen for me? That would be the best case scenario. Is that going to happen? Unlikely. And one of the reasons I was actually joining a little bit later is I got into this in-depth conversation with Gemini AI, which has replaced Google Assistant on Pixel phones on Androids. So they're all in on that. They're definitely mothballing the traditional Google Assistant for that. But I wanted to see what the comparison would be between the three of them. What's been announced, what's been theorized, and what are the predicted paths that they're going to go down for development. And based on, I guess, what Apple's been doing over the last couple of years regarding Siri or just Apple in general, is they've got to focus on personal privacy and all of those things that Apple's focuses on. And of course, their focus has always been, or their big selling point is, it just works, right? The UX and UI of Apple devices is supposed to be the bar in which everybody tries to match, right? Everything's integrated. Everything is, it's very clear path, so you don't diverge too much. So that's what we'll probably see in Siri. Whatever it does do probably will work very well. Now, do I think it will be, whenever an Apple device and an Android device are compared, the newest tech or newest hardware is always released or better on Android because it's more open. There's hundreds of manufacturers making all different kinds of components and things like that, whereas Apple's the only one who's making iPhones. So, but iPhones usually have a better experience for most people, right? So that's what I see from Siri. I see that it will they'll announce a bunch of features just like every other tech company in cycle. It'll say, this is what's available now, and this is what will roll out in the next few months. And when they announce iOS 18, they'll show a nice slick demo video because that's the Apple thing. But we'll say components A, B, and C, right? The features A, B, and C, those will work well. That's what I'm expecting. Now, what I think those particular features are, it'll be the conversational piece, because that's what will make it easier for everyone. So if there was a prediction, I would say it would be the natural language conversation. If they are tying in with OpenAI specifically for Siri, then that's probably what we're going to see, is that feature, what OpenAI showed for 4.0.
So, Carl, I know you sort of, you've gone to Paris now. You're now internationally traveling. You're hearing all the latest stuff. You've been pretty bold with your predictions. Certainly in our Slack channels, you're like, I'm sticking with this. I think, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you said Sam Altman's walking out on the stage next Monday. Yeah. He's going to be there live. So what? We do need to get to Amazon and Alexa as well, but what is, same question that I kind of gave to Jimmy, what's your predictions? We're 1 week out, given everything you've read, Bloomberg's and everything else, what do you feel like you're going to see next week for Siri? And is it going to be enough? I guess would be my follow-up question.
The one thing that I'm very curious about, where everybody has said, which I think is now true, because initially the thought was, okay, Siri is going to be powered by GPT-4 or will be, that was my prediction, is completely replaced by GPT-4. That'll be like Siri's done, or they'll rename it or whatever it's going to be. But what the thing that I'm really looking forward to is there's a lot of reports that you're going to be able to not just have a conversation like we have with ChatGPT mobile with their voice mode right now, but you can control your apps. So what does that mean when you can control your apps, because that opens a lot of different doors. I think the key thing that I'm looking at, and this goes beyond Apple, because Google will implement some sort of meta implementation, Anthropic implementation, whatever that is. They're all going to be in the same boat about 6 months from now, which impacts all of everything that we have. That is, I think people may be glossing over the power of what you can do with an AI that has agentic features that can now do stuff for you. And then take it one step further. How many CarPlay devices are there? What can that do? So what are some these agentic features can now be able to operate? I think on the car, it's not like you can turn on, like it's more of, operate my radio and all that kind of stuff. It'd be nice though. It'd be like, hey, I need you to set a temperature control, or like give me like medium power fan. That would be amazing. So I just have to mess around.
Say just a Google Maps, or unless Apple Maps maybe. But I mean, a lot of times you started, I don't know about you guys, but you start in your car or you start in your phone and you're like, hey, I need to plan the trip to wherever. In my case, pretty soon my family's going to take a small trip, like a weekend trip. And, I'm setting it up. I also have an EV. So I also have to plan for, it's a long enough trip that I have to plan to stop and charge. So there's that part of it. Like I kind of start on my phone. So to your point with the CarPlay, it'd be great if Siri had the ability to help me plan on my phone, but knew that at a certain set time. So basically set a reminder on this day when I start that trip, go ahead and pull that up into my CarPlay and ask me if I'm ready to start that trip with all the stuff I already just researched on my phone. That would be awesome. It's a little thing, but it would be awesome. So I'm sorry, keep going. But.
Yeah, I feel that's like the Apple way. Like they've always said they've always like tried to put the technology in the background, so it's just you using it without you thinking about it. So I feel that's the piece there. I do think like, so for Alexa or Siri or whatnot, I think on next Monday is going to be the day when we actually experience what Alexa and Siri, or what the expectation was. I don't know if that's what the builders actually thought it would do, because the expectation is Siri and Alexa can do all these things. But it's like, well, I don't think the technology was there yet, right? I remember I was working for a home builder, and the whole thing was like, oh, we're going to put all these devices in all these show homes. It's like, hey, how much does this cost? Oh, today's date is June 10th. Like, no, this doesn't, like, it just never worked. So like it that was all hype. Now it actually can work. And I don't know if the expectation now is the same, or, oh, people stop trusting the voice devices. And so until they actually can use it themselves. So I'm really hoping there's a live demo. I'm really hoping there's no like slick video.
Polished video. Yeah.
I feel Apple has like, I feel that they'll do a live demo, and I feel that's the only way Sam Altman will be there, is a live demo. Apple, that'd be crazy, and then have that. It'd be even crazier. Here's like a 10% prediction. Satya and Nadella will show up, and all three of them will raise their hands like this kind of deal, which is with Sam in the middle. Like, it'd be really funny. I doubt that is not going to happen, but imagine that would happen.
Yeah. I mean, it would be pretty. It'd be pretty influential if it did, for sure.
Yeah, because it is powered by Microsoft's, like, to actually use it. Isn't it a whole bunch of things powered by, to actually use the cloud service where a lot of these Apple devices are going to start talking to? It's going to Microsoft. So isn't that what they're talking about?
By the way, nice little plug for tomorrow's show, which is about data centers and how much power AI is actually taking. And so you kind of tangentially, but I just want to plug for tomorrow's show that we're going to be talking about that. Mm-hmm. No, I think you bring up a lot of good points. I've said this before on the show that, like, I don't have any, well, I'll say this. I am an Apple device at my house, except for PCs. I use PC computers, but then I have Apple devices, but I do have Echoes in the house. Would I, after seeing something maybe next week, be willing to switch out Echoes for Apple HomePods, I think there were, or whatever, or that kind of thing, which honestly I never really felt like were there. but we've talked about this before. Like if my house Siri seems to be the glue. If Siri ends up being the vocal glue, the natural language glue between all these devices, you mentioned CarPlay. I'll talk about Apple TV because I use it in my house all the time. And so it would be really, really helpful. Same way CarPlay, it'd be helpful to say, hey, Siri, remind me next time that I turn on the TV that I wanted to watch this YouTube video and pick it up where I am right now. Kind of already could do that because I could go to my history and do it. But I'm thinking about other things in my house. I'm moving around doing different things. If it knew that I joined this and then there was just a thing and Siri came on my screen and was like, hey, did you want to pick up this video now? You told me to remind you about it. I'm like, that's right. I did want to watch the rest of that video, whatever. So little things like that would really change it. Now, for me, I don't use Siri. I have it. I mentioned before, my wife tends to use it more since she got an Apple Watch, which was at Christmas, and my daughter definitely uses it. So teenager uses it all the time. I don't almost ever use it. Honestly. But I do use Echo, but it has fallen off obviously over the last 10 years. So if Amazon is coming out and let's say it's at the top of the single digit range, meaning that they say it's going to cost money, I'm going to say $9. So we're just going to put it at the top of that single digit, which is sort of a rumor. $9 a month and I get the Echo Plus. Okay. What is this Echo Plus going to do for me? Well, it's sitting throughout my house. So it's sort of the house personal assistant, if you will. And right now, I'm going to say it's good for setting a timer when I'm cooking pasta, a good reminder. I set a timer every time I'm doing laundry because I won't hear it upstairs. My daughter uses it all the time to turn lights on and off in the house. We have several automations in the house that are set up that way. And so she will say, turn on the upstairs stairs and bing, 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 16 things happen upstairs, and that's fantastic for her. So she doesn't have to go upstairs to a dark house, right? So like we do use it all the time, but we use it in I use 6 things all the time. It's not like it's a personal assistant. So for me, what Amazon will going to need to do, it's not like Apple where there's an announcement next week. We might have to wait. I've heard June 30th, which isn't terribly far for announcement from Amazon. I don't know how accurate that is. But that's what I would be looking for. It's like, I don't actually even need them. I don't want them to be the same thing. I don't want them to be interchangeable. What I want from me personally from an Echo is a better home assistant. And from Siri, I want a better overall assistant that can open the apps, go to Apple TV, go to CarPlay, go to all these Apple connected things where I'm getting more agent-like stuff. I don't know that I necessarily need that from Echo right now. But for both of them, I definitely need a better natural language experience. So that would be sort of my answer for where I'd like to see both.
And I think we're likely to do that. But just for a little context, that was Salesforce 4 years ago, 5 years ago, to be able to have a natural language interaction with already set functionality. I'm not sure this is enough. While also knowing that we're totally we're in the bubble, we have very high expectations. But as people start to really get a sense of what GPT-4o can do, and when the more agentic being able to take actions on your behalf, I'm not sure this is going to be enough soon enough, which doesn't mean anything from Apple because they have such a huge market share, and Amazon also, right? But they're already they're starting from a place of disappointment. So if they're successful, they've come up to I'm less disappointed, or maybe I'm not disappointed, but I'm not sure they're going to come to the level of wow, this is really great. I think they're maybe a little too far behind for that.
And I wanted to look up really quick, Beth, because you mentioned it. They have such a large ecosystem. I was just curious. This is what AI Overview says. As of February 2024, CEO Tim Cook announced that Apple has over 2.2 billion active devices in use.
Yes.
2.2 billion active devices. So when you talk about the reach, now I'd be curious, we can follow up with this, how many Echo or let's say Alexa.
So I guess I'm saying I think that it may be successful with the majority of their user base, while also disappointing heavy AI users. like us.
Well, there's also a question when you mentioned all those devices, Brian, is how many of those devices are going to be compatible, like with whatever they release. Like I've got a Pixel 6, right? And only now it was that rolled out with Gemini AI as their, as their replacement feature for Google Assistant. And
Is Pixel 6 the most recent? Forgive me. I don't know.
No. They're on 8 something or
Okay.
11.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I got an old phone.
Yeah.
So
Maybe it's new. I don't know.
no. Right. So, so my question is like, what's going to be the compatibility? What's going to be the backward compatibility for these devices, or for these new AI features? Is iOS 18 going to require, an M1 or later, because that's the only one with an NPU, those kinds of questions. 2 billion active devices, great. But we all know that the vast majority of cell phones in use or purchased are the older models, not the, the flagships. That's what they announced, but that's not what the vast majority of people have.
Yeah, let's remember that Siri is a cloud connected. You have to be connected in order to use it. It's not a local function. So if we're talking about getting conversational assistance local on the device, where it doesn't have to consult with the cloud or the resources in the cloud, then that's a whole different progression. And yeah, that's going to be constrained in terms of the number of units that are compatible with that kind of local AI processing. I wanted to shift back to something Brian was saying, which was, he uses Echo in the house, and it's a great home assistant.
Cool.
And the numbers for Echo, Amazon's Echo, are that it has a majority market share of installed smart home devices.
I know.
Right? Okay. Apple and the HomePod HomeKit setup has a low single digits, presence out there, and just in terms of the devices there. So you see the sort of the ecosystems being very different. Alexa, home assistant, reminders, cooking, order me some stuff from Amazon, all of that. They have an enormous advantage just in terms of the distribution of existing Echo devices out there. Google Assistant, the Google Nest connection, that gives them about a 20%, presence out there. But you can see how already Google's much, much smaller than Amazon. So Amazon's in a really powerful position to introduce more sophisticated conversational and agentic assistance to the population, let's say. Whereas Siri and Apple are right here on my device, right? And so all the functions that I want to do with my phone are going to be accelerated and or amplified by the capabilities of Siri once Siri gets to the proficiency that it satisfies me as a user.
Right. But are you then doing, like, the phone could replace the device, but the device can't replace the phone, right?
Sure.
So when that gets to a place where your iPhone can just function the way that that your like little speaker pod is doing, then I think Apple is still in that strong driver's seat, unless ChatGPT or OpenAI comes out with a device, right? Like they have, in a weird way, they have all the back end. They just need the front kind of piece. That's me speculating based on months ago. Sam is working on a device with somebody, so don't go. That's like tinfoil hat, maybe.
Yeah. I think you have an excellent point. I'm going to guess that Brian is going to be resistant to switching out Echo and the connections it has to his home system, if you will. That's not going to be solved by a smart assistant on the iPhone.
Okay, Carl.
I think when we talk about the devices and this, I remember Sam Altman saying, do you remember, I can't remember which podcast he was on. He was I think it was a Lex Friedman one where he was saying he admired the technology that is the iPhone. And then while he was saying that was, then there was the rumblings of like that partnership. Then it was somebody else who mentions like whenever a founder has a admiration for another device, that usually leads to some sort of collaboration. So I feel that's where that's headed. And I'm curious because you mentioned it too, Andy, about, I don't know if just recently too, it was about what can not just the cloud offering, like it's still run on the cloud, but remember that a lot of the rumors saying that a lot of the stuff you could do on device, and then some of it is going to the cloud, some of it, if it can be done locally, it could. So, and then there's a whole bunch of questions about, okay, which is GPT-4 or OpenAI, which is proprietary themselves, because there's a lot of conflicting reports, which is and which isn't. So that'll be an interesting play. Plus, how does Google Gemini play into this too? But if Apple's paying OpenAI billions of dollars, there must be some pretty significant application. But then the question is, Brian, too, if Siri enables all of this and doesn't charge a price, just the price of the device, I'd be curious to see if like, oh, Amazon's charging us $10, Apple charges nothing.
Yep. That I'm with you, Carl. That's what I want to see. I want to see. If Apple tries to jump forward, that would be a fantastic way of doing it. It's like, because it'll be integrated in your iOS 18, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, we don't have to charge an extra $8. We don't add $30 to Google Workspace.
Yeah.
We don't. None of that. I would love to see that. I think that would be a great way to catch into it.
I just don't see how Amazon can compete with that then. If it's like, any device, you just buy the device or you have the device, but it's all connected already, then your Echo sits there and be like, $10 a month or free. I'm not now because I have Echoes all over my house too. And like the only thing that people use it for is exactly the same thing. Setting a timer, asking very, very simple questions, and playing Spotify.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And even that, it doesn't always...
60%.
100% of the time.
Right? Is what is it going to take for people to switch their ecosystem that they're in? Right? What's that critical tipping point? It's like, oh, okay. No, my Echo is 5-6 years old or whatever, or 10 years old or whatnot. Yeah. Okay, is it time to get a new thing? And if they announce something like, oh yeah, and then now IoT devices are all connected through XYZ chip in the new iPhones or something like that. It's like, oh, I could just buy a new iPhone with the new Siri and the new Chat GPT or whatever, and then control all through there. So yeah, I think figuring out what that tipping point is, and I think the easy play right now is Apple just eats the cost, uses it as a loss leader, and says, we've got the new best models, everything's tied into the new Siri, and every Apple owner has it already. Done.
Well, we're gonna obviously know a lot of these answers next week. The event is on Monday. So next Tuesday is when we will be doing our full review of whatever just happened with Apple. We'll be talking about that. But we do have a whole bunch of other shows coming up in the next 2 weeks. I want to call out some of them. Tomorrow, I talked about it. We're going to be talking about our energy costs, too high for AI. Is it simply costing too much? We don't like to think about it because we get all these fun, really, really, helpful tools that help us do a bunch of stuff. But what is the true cost of energy for all this great stuff that's coming with AI? So we're going to dive deep into that tomorrow. The news on Wednesday. On Thursday, we're talking about the top, all of our individual top 5 AI tools that are currently transforming our lives. Is it the ChatGPT? Is it Perplexity? Is it some other tool? And then we'll sort of round robin and figure out what the ultimate 5 is at the end of that show. Friday, we got our bi-weekly review. And then coming up next week, like I said, on Tuesday, we're talking about Apple. We're going to be talking about a recent Reuters report that came out about journalism and AI, which is very interesting that Carl was talking about it. And we're going to be talking about, can frontier models keep growing at 5x? There was a recent report on that as well from Epic, I think it was. We'll get that right. So we'll be talking about them, and then we'll do another tool review next week. So that's what we have coming up over the next 2 weeks. Of course, things could change as, new AI stuff comes out. Sometimes we pivot, but keep coming back. Like I said at the top of the show, we really appreciate it. If you have not subscribed to us on YouTube, as well as the other platforms, that means a lot to us. We're trying to hit that 1,000. We're pretty sure we're going to hit it this week based on numbers. But that's a good milestone for us, and we'll be upwards and onwards from there. So that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about energy needs and what that means in AI. So until tomorrow, guys, have a good one. Bye.
Oh.